All right, we are recording. Everybody, welcome to episode 10, I believe. I really got to start writing these down because every time
Yeah, right.
I'm
It is 10.
guessing.
According to the spreadsheet, it's 10.
Okay. I feel like I'm guessing every time I talk about it. It's like episode. So episode 10, we're here and we've got a very special guest here. We got our friend Pete from Davis Estates, who Pete and I, through a conversation, realized that we've been in the same room 100 times, and we've now finally connected the dots. Pete and I share a lot of friends in common who Segi and DR know as well. So Pete, it's awesome to be connecting here. Thanks for spending your Friday with us.
Oh, well, thank you guys for having me. I'm honored and excited to drink some wine with you guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, dude.
So we'll go around. We just always at the top talk about where we're at, and maybe when we talk about where we're at, you talk about where you're at, and then pan a little bit to that view that none of us have. So David Britt's here in Los Angeles, California.
Segi Isho still coming to you from Detroit, Michigan.
And I'm Dave Roberts. Everybody calls me DR, coming to you from my kitchen and my bar here in Chicago.
Nice. And I am Peter Huls, and right on the border of St. Helena and Calistoga on Silverado Trail.
And if you can you pan to the view so we can see it?
Yeah, I have to brag here a little bit about my office view. This is not the worst thing to look out on every day. A little overcast today, but I can't really complain.
Yeah.
Would make changing diapers a little bit better.
I woke up to snow on the ground here, so little overcast I would take.
So it's fair to say Pete's office view is better than everybody else's office view.
That is fair.
So Pete, before we get into the wine, which we're all super excited about, give us a little bit about your history, how you got to Davis, and how you got into wine.
Yeah, well, I've really been doing this my whole adult life. My kind of passion for this started 16 years old. My second job ever was bussing tables at a fine dining restaurant outside of Sacramento. And my parents were school teachers. We did not drink wine. They actually didn't drink at all. And so, when you're a busser and 16 and people leave 3 fingers of wine at the table and you're clearing plates, those things end up at the busser station with no glasses and the bottles disappear. So that was kind of my first introduction. And then what really got me into it fully was I had moved out of my parents' house when I was 18 and moved in with 2 of the servers at this restaurant that we were all working at. And they were working in wine shops, a place called David Berkeley in Sacramento during the day, and then they would serve at night. And, they're doing blind tastings and international wine studies, and we're getting the certificates for the sommelier credentials. And so normally when you move out and you're 18, you're doing beer pong and keggers, which we were doing as well. But then there was also nights where it was like, okay, let's try Malbecs from 6 different countries. And usually, at 18, 19 years old, that's not really what you get exposed to. And I realized I had a decent palate for it. And honestly, I thought it was a great way to meet women. And so I decided I'm going to do this full time because I'm awkward enough that I need any help that I can get. So that's kind of what started my wine studies. And I just started reading Spectator. I went through the Court of Master Sommeliers once I got to Napa, but I did hospitality management at Sac State, which is essentially how to be nice to people. It's one of the easiest, fun majors out there. And as soon as I graduated, I started working in a winery outside of Amador called Bella Piazza. And there's another big one called Villa Toscano. So I managed those places. I did a little bit of work in Lodi before I came out and got a job at the time was Nebaum Coppola. But it went through the transition to Rubicon Estate and then to Inglenook. And I got to work for the Godfather, Mr. Francis Coppola, which was really fun.
Wow.
And kind of during the transition of all the old unique Godfather stuff going from Napa over to the old Chateau Souverain and the new Coppola winery. So I got to see kind of the busyness, and then it get very focused on history and heritage. And I worked out there for 3 years, kind of VIP tour guide, got to host a lot of Francis' friends, which was really fun, and go back and work his family gatherings, which were really, really fun. And then I got a management job at Minor, went over and I worked at Minor for 6 years. And then this opportunity came about to be the tasting room and hospitality manager here. And I had taken a tour when they did a soft opening. So this facility here was under construction for over 5 years. They broke ground in 2011. It didn't open up until May of 16. So we're relatively young. We're celebrating our 4th anniversary, I guess you could say, kind of toddlers in the wine game out here. But they started making wine in 2011 through an offsite facility. But 2016 was the first year that our caves and lab and winemaking facility was completed. So that is kind of what I call the rebirth of Davis, and really when it got very, the quality went way up because we were farming our own fruit, we're crushing, we're filtering, we're doing everything in-house. And we don't do any custom crush. We just make our own wines. We're right at about, let's say 7,000 to 9,000 cases, and focus on Bordeaux varietals, but we do a little bit of everything. So it's been fun.
That was a lot of information, but just to go back real quick, when you said Francis's friends, are you talking like Bobby De Niro friends, or are you talking like people we won't know?
Yeah, I don't really like name drop that much, but definitely a lot of people that he's worked with. He would have a lot of big family Easters and Mother's Day and stuff like that back in his private, mansion back there, and you never know kind of who you'd run into. So, but we are somewhat sworn to secrecy. He doesn't like us name dropping because he's kind of the big celebrity out here. So when you work for him, I try not to, but the answer is yes.
That's pretty sweet. That's pretty sweet.
And one other thing you mentioned, you touched on a little bit, 6 years at Minor. I always joked with our mutual friend Steve Gage about, just the people that came out of that Minor tasting room and the crew that was there. I mean, so many people who work in various parts of the wine world now came out of Minor.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys have like a little bit of a reunion for all the Minor crew that was there at one time.
Well, definitely. We're all into golf and music, and that's kind of the two things that are one of the reasons why people would work at Minor, because of all the music connections and the golf connections. For me, also, the third thing was ice hockey. My family's from Detroit and Toronto, so I grew up half Wings, half Maple Leafs fans. And Dave Minor, the owner there, was really big into hockey and was making wine for the NHL. So that was one of the reasons why I started over there. And now I just really got tied up with connections with the Sharks, which is our local team here. So I still play beer league up in Santa Rosa, which is a way how you can not weigh 350 pounds when you eat and drink professionally, is, go drink some beers in the locker room, sweat it out, and then drink beers in the parking lot afterwards.
That sounds like fun, man. And it's you got to have a little balance in this. We do these things, and I've had friends go in and say, "Hey, man, you're tasting wine at 3:00 on a Friday," and it's like, "Yeah, but you didn't see what else I did the rest of the day." I mean,
yeah. I also had bourbon and vodka and beer and champagne.
For her work, had a happy hour that started over an hour ago, and so I definitely have had a Manhattan or two.
Nice. My new quarantine thing is every time I go to the grocery store, I pick out something different for my bar cart. So I found a cool app where you can essentially put everything you own from your bar cart into the app, and it just gives you a list of drinks.
Oh, that's great.
That's cool.
We were realizing we were going through way a lot of wine, which is, somewhat, we get it. But, when you work and live in the industry for over 15 years, when you get off of work, sometimes it's cocktail hour and not necessarily red wine hour. But I'm happy you guys are giving me an excuse to open up something awesome.
So speaking of, what are we opening up, Pete?
So we have the flagship wine at Davis Estates is called Zephyr. Here is the bottle. Oh, very nice. So this is 2016 vintage. The blend on it, 87% Cabernet Sauvignon, 9% Cabernet Franc, 3% Merlot, and just a splash Petit Verdot used for color and aroma, just 1% of that. So you could legally call this a Cabernet, but we call it Zephyr. Zephyr is a little homage to our logo and label, which is the windmill. Our owner, Mike Davis, went to University of Indiana for shot put and discus on
Wait. It's Indiana University, my friend.
Oh, I'm sorry.
DR and I and the rest of Straight No Chaser are also alumni of Indiana University.
Oh, very, very cool. Well, I apologize.
It's okay. It's okay.
So he kind of loved the Midwest and loved the kind of rolling hills with windmills. And so he decided here to build a working windmill, and that will pump water. There's a well underneath, and that pumps and irrigates our whole front yard vineyard. So we have 6 acres in the front yard planted to Cabernet Sauvignon and Cabernet Franc, which is the view you guys saw. Then we have Petit, Syrah, Cabernet Franc, and 2 different blocks of Cab in our backyard, which is kind of right on the border of Howell Mountain. So 2016, legally you could call it a Cabernet Sauvignon. I popped mine, full disclosure, about a half hour before we started, threw it in a decanter just because, you know, usually with Cabernets out of Napa, I tend to like the last ounce the best just after it's opened up and got some air. So really, really nice wine. You know, we've been making it every year. It's kind of what we're known for. Right around that $100 price point, retails for $105. And just a beautiful, beautiful wine. What are you guys getting in the nose?
Getting oak on the nose.
Okay. You thinking more sweet oak, dry oak?
Oh, yeah. No, for me, more of that vanilla-y oak, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Vanilla bean or vanilla flavor?
I don't know the difference, but French for sure.
For sure.
Definitely 100% French oak. We only use first and second cycles here on it. So, you know, usually young cab, you're going to get a big percentage of oak on the nose. Fruit profile, you guys getting more red fruit, blue fruit, or black fruit?
Getting black.
Black, okay.
Yeah,
Black,
yeah, for sure.
black cherry, black currant.
A
lot of blackberry, yeah, for sure.
Blackberry, yeah.
See, I'm getting more blueberry.
I get some blueberry too, for sure.
Little
Yeah.
jammy.
Yeah.
Tannins are there in full effect.
Oh yeah. It's definitely kind of opening up in my glass. It's you know, edgy right now, but as we swirl and as it opens up, it'll, you know, create that harmonious balance kind of come into effect. But tannin's pretty strong right now. I see you doing that.
Yeah. A lot of tannins.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Definitely more dry, right? Like just kind of pulling everything out of your mouth as it finishes.
For sure.
This is definitely a red wine.
Very big.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Big, bold red wine.
Red.
But as big as Napa's got, one of the reasons why I've always appreciated this wine in particular is that it still has some good acid. I mean, the mid palate, kind of once when you first swallow, there's, you know, that spice and the alcohol, but you get that kind of zing, kind of that makes you salivate right in the middle of it. And that, I think, is kind of what makes this wine special, is that bright acid as far as how dark and deep and juicy and inky the wine is.
As it opens, I'm getting some tobacco in the scent, like pretty strong.
Pipe tobacco, Swisher Sweets.
Probably pipe tobacco.
Okay.
Probably like loose pipe tobacco.
I agree with that.
Nice.
You know, and it's you know, obviously the tannins are there, but there's no real burn on it. Looks like it's 15.3, but I'm not getting, you know,
15? Is that what you said? 15.3?
Yep.
Wow.
But not feeling a ton of burn. It's very smooth. But I'm getting it all over the palate. So I'm getting it front, mid. I'm getting something different everywhere.
That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, my favorite thing is complex wines. Beginning, middle, end. There's a lot of stuff going on. You got to kind of think about it to try to, you know, think about what I'm actually tasting. And every time you go in, it could be a little bit something different. That's one of the things I love about wine is that there's no right or wrong answer. And the more you drink it, the better you feel and the more creativity comes out.
Yeah, the better you feel, especially with 15%.
Yeah.
Sleep well tonight.
Well,
like the idea that there's no way that you can ever know everything about wine. It's impossible. And, every time I start to think I know a little bit about wine, I sit down with people like you and I realize I have so much more to learn. But, I think that's the fun part about it and I'm sure you sit down with people and you're like, oh my God, I still have a lot more to learn.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, I went through the Court of Master Sommeliers and got certified, but other than that, I'm all self-taught. And really, it just came down to tasting so many wines, getting in tasting groups, doing tons of blind tasting, because, I think that people start out, just like beer drinkers, they're starting off on Coors Light and Bud Light, and, people that get into wine are starting off on, my generation was Mad Dog, Boone's Farm, Thunderbird, all wines like that. And as you mature and your palate grows, as far as I'm concerned, I've always been really big into food and wine, but you always want something a little bit different and something you've never had before. And that's what gets the cerebral brain going. Yeah. And what excites me now is the stuff that I don't have access to. Yeah. And so it seems like at least my palate has gotten weirder and funkier and, goes through these ebbs and flows of loving oak Chardonnay and then hating oak Chardonnay and then coming back again. But realistically, just like you said, there's so much to learn. And the more that you learn, the more you realize you don't know anything.
Yeah. And I think that's fun. And that's why, we've had fun doing this because, we just talk about wine and what we think about it and what we're tasting. And, it's not right or wrong. It's just our opinion. It's what we're getting from the wine. And, you can say that that's not what you're getting, but so be it.
So be it. As long as you can drink it and you enjoy it, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
This is so big. Like I do want to have some food with it, like maybe some stinky cheese or just a big steak. Something just something bold to go with this.
Yep.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit? We were talking a little bit before we started recording about the part of the winery that you guys do with Philippe in the Phase 5. And, isn't there a bit of an interesting story about Davis and how Philippe came to make, wine with you guys? And
Yes. So at Davis, we have two winemakers. Who makes the Davis Estates is a guy named Kerry Gott. And most people know his son, Joel Gott, because Joel Gott's wines are in every grocery store you've ever wandered into. Joel Gott Sauvignon Blanc is one of the most popular wines, in America, and a great value purchase for, sometimes you can get it Safeway for, $12, $13, $14. Now, Kerry Gott, his father, is a second generation, third generation winemaker. He's been doing wines out of California for over 50 years. So he kind of has a pedigree of starting small wineries and kind of getting them off the ground. And essentially what happened was Mike and Sandy Davis, who are our owners, were looking for property for kind of their retirement project. And they found this little piece of property right on the border of St. Helena and Calistoga. It was the old Savier family ranch. And there was essentially a few acres of vineyards, one small house, and then an old abandoned barn. And that was it. And they saw the property, they took a tour, and Mike ended up bidding on it, and he ended up winning the bid, which is great. And he found out that somebody else that was bidding on the property was named Philippe Milka. And that is one of those names that's good to be associated with. And so, Philippe consults for 3-4 dozen different wineries out here. And so Mike wanted to make a wine that would rival any of the, big wigs out here as far as, Harlan, Screaming Eagle, Scarecrow, kind of that level of prestige, and said, I don't care what it costs. We're going to spend the money, the technology, and try to make this happen. So he got introduced to Philippe through kind of mutual friends. And the story goes is that through a few bourbons and a couple cocktails, they decided that they would partner up. And Philippe really loved the fact that we had old Petite Syrah vines on a very steep hillside right above the tasting room. And he was talking with Mike, and Mike said, yeah, you know, Petite Syrah, who buys that? Let's rip it up and plant Cabernet Sauvignon. And Philippe said, you have no idea the genus of that fruit, the fact that it's on this super steep hillside that would never get approved in today's Napa. You have western facing slope. You have, you know, the best rootstocks going with this particular one. He goes, I want to work with that wine. I don't care whatever happens. Keep that vineyard and I will make your Petite Syrah. And Mike kind of had that moment of, well, if you're going to do Petite Syrah, you might as well make a Cabernet as well. So he just makes essentially 3 wines for us. They're called the Phase 5 wines. And those, the term Phase 5 comes from the 5 phases of starting a project like this, which was essentially find the property and buy the property, plant the infrastructure around, you know, develop wells, gates, stuff like that. Get the permits to build, and then start construction, and then finally kind of open the winery. And from start to finish, that was 5 years plus of waiting on your hands. And I really can't imagine retiring from a software company that was super successful, finding a property, and then waiting for almost 6 years to build it. So the 5 phases of doing this winery project, it always was coming back to 555, and that's kind of where that Phase 5 name came to be. So we don't really market or advertise those wines. You kind of have to somewhat know somebody to get some, but especially the Philippe Milka following that he has comes in here and buys up that wine. So it's pretty incredible. The Petite Syrah is at 115 for current release. The Cabernet is at 225, and they go up from there in the library. But we started those in 2011 and 12, and now we're on our fifth wine released of that particular series.
That's awesome, man. And you, you know, we were just talking about sort of the super high end, and we get asked a lot by people. And then I want to go back to talking more about this wine in particular. But, you know, we talked about high end. We get asked a lot about, hey, where do I start? I'm intimidated with wine. Like, if I'm curious to start to explore wine, where do I start? You know, what's a good wine for me to start with? You know, in your experience, where should somebody start who is just curious about wine?
Well, I think that a lot of that has to do with like what you're comfortable in paying for a bottle. I think when people start, you know, you kind of want to be starting in that maybe $15 to $20 price point. I don't want to put a number on things, but I try to turn people off for drinking things that are less than $15 because of a lot of the additives that they're using to create flavor and to help mask some of the stuff that they're doing in the vineyard. But you can usually get, you know, a wine that's well made in that $15 to $20 range. And what I usually suggest to people to do is to start by learning the different varietals and what type of wines or regions you like. So a great place to start that has great value, bang for the buck, I hate to say it, is Trader Joe's. And you can go there and yeah, you can find some awesome.
My wife loves it
for 10 to 20 bucks. And even if you cross-reference that like online, it can be half price of the cheapest online realtor. So that's a great place to start. And what I would suggest is, you know, find a California red that is a cab blend, and then also buy a wine from Bordeaux. Try same type of grapes blended together, one domestic, one international. You know, there's a huge difference between Old World and New World. And if you start to realize like, okay, this is what this grape or this region tastes like, you can decide what you like, and from there kind of blossom your development and try new things. But I'd say the biggest thing for me with learning about wine is get out of your comfort zone. You know, when people come in here and say they just drink Cabernet Sauvignons and they don't want blends, I kind of have to laugh because that's one of the dumbest things you can say in a tasting, because all cabs are blends. Even if it's
I'm not drinking Merlot.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's you know, even if it's 100% cab, it's a blend of vineyards. It's a blend of clones. It's a blend of valley floor versus hillside. Every wine is a blend. So unless you're talking about a single clone Pinot from one vineyard, that's really the only time that you can say this is one wine that tastes like one thing. but it's a never-ending journey, and you know, it leads people to the bedroom, which is a great thing about wine.
It is a never-ending journey, and I think that's again what like when I drink with Segi and Brits here, that's part of what I enjoy about it. That we're always trying new things. We're always, you know, I like this about it, or I don't like that, and you know, it never ends. That's part of why we're doing this.
Absolutely.
Well, it's, you know, I think the whole idea of saying, I don't drink this or I don't like this, you know, I guarantee if you tell me, hey, I hate Chardonnay, I can put a Chardonnay in front of you.
Oh yeah.
That I would think that you would probably like, you know, depending on what your typical palate is. Cause there, you know, if you don't like if you're not going for the, you know, the Rombauer or the super buttery, like just oaky Chardonnay, if that's not your thing, there's plenty of other Chardonnays out there that really have a completely different flavor profile than the butter bombs.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, there is something out there for everybody. So I think just kind of dismissing things out of hand is probably not the best way to go into exploration.
I agree.
You said Rombauer, and I'm confused. Is there maybe another name that I would recognize that one by?
Oh.
Yeah, I mean there's another name that is used for the Rombauer Chardonnay.
There's a few. We have a
What's
long.
that?
Not ringing a bell. Not ringing a bell. Maybe if there was another name that it went by, I might recognize it.
Something juice is something juice. Yeah.
Grape juice.
Grape.
I will say though, I think the exception is port. I won't drink port. I've never had a port that I've liked. It all just tastes like syrup to me.
Sure. So is it the sweetness you don't like about it?
Yeah, it's too sweet. And you know, randomly when we did a sit down in Atlantic City several years ago, and somehow this gentleman who was a fan was like, Segi, I found out that you love port. And he brought me this magnum of some port. I don't know any
yeah,
ports.
already you know it's not good.
And I was just like, I am not gonna drink this. Like I was just like, thank you so much. It's just gonna be great backstage, unopened forever. But yeah, I can never like, I don't know. I've done like the cigars and all the stuff, and just never could.
So, have you ever had a good aged Madeira?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Possibly,
I
because
think so.
we had some friends when I was living in Vegas. We had some friends that were managing some like the really nice restaurants, and from time to time they would hook it up. And I was actually with Charlie and his wife Julia one time for Charlie's birthday, and afterwards, after dinner, there's an upstairs where you go and drink brandy and port and smoke cigars. And I believe he brought out some Madeira because I think Charlie was really enjoying it. And I was just like, man, not for me. Just keep bringing the wine. Like I'm good with just the wine. Like I don't need any of this other stuff. I believe he brought out.
I was queuing us up on the phone. Yeah, it's sorry, let me circle back to where we're at. I lost this for a second. Cool.
There we go.
Let's jump back into the wine for a little bit, if you don't mind. Anybody getting anything different right now?
So I'm getting
yeah,
a lot of good, yeah.
I was gonna say I'm getting something like sweet and spicy. Like, is it like a licorice maybe? As it opens up a little bit.
So black licorice or red licorice? Black
licorice, 100%.
I definitely see that.
This gentleman who was a fan. Getting some black cherry on the finish.
Yeah. Mine's getting softer and smoother and getting, you know, if there's a flavor graph like this, it's definitely starting to, you know, meld and create that balance of flavor. So to me, it's getting kind of rounder and lusher and juicier while it's opening up.
For sure. I agree with that, definitely. For sure.
Still, like Brits likes to say, still hitting everything front to back, right? It's just kind of, it's just more smooth as it washes across the palate.
Yeah, to me, the alcohol is wearing off. You're not getting the
Mhm.
warmth anymore.
Yeah.
And that's what, 20 minutes open, you know?
Getting the
Yeah.
cocoa and chocolate notes more now. That's becoming more visible.
I was just gonna say the chocolate on the finish
More
too.
of that cocoa, particularly on the finish as it dries out. You get that sort of that real dark chocolate, high cocoa percentage.
Less of
So
that vanilla oakiness that was there on the front end
Right.
before.
The spices have curbed, and it's everything is melding.
Jeanette wants to know, what does swirling the glasses do for the flavor of the wine?
So that is, I'm going to geek out. It's called volatilizing the esters. And essentially by swirling, you're separating aroma molecules from alcohol molecules. So usually after you swirl, you will get less alcohol after so long because essentially it's opening up and you're going to get a softer kind of smell to it. So usually if you just, pour some in your glass and go directly to smell, you're only going to really pick up 30 to 40%. But, if you're talking about that last ounce or two, it's essentially letting the wine open, and so that you can identify more kind of different layers and different levels of complexity within that wine. So I always think of it when I'm smelling wine first, because to me, over 75% of tasting a wine is through this olfactory, the nose, is kind of breaking it down to, okay, do I smell red fruit, blue fruit, black fruit? And then within those categories, red fruit, cranberry, raspberry, pomegranate, cherry, blue fruit, fig, plum, blueberry, black fruit, blackberry, black cherry, cassis, currant, trying to kind of identify those through the card catalog of flavors that you have stored in your brain via memory, right? And then going into, okay, now I'm going to look at spices. And spices, you just think of a spice rack. You got green spices, you got black spices, and then go into earth, and then go into oak. So I always try to smell things kind of within those categories, and then think of, okay, if oak, are we talking about, baking spice? Is it Christmas cake? Is it cinnamon, brown sugar, nutmeg, clove, vanilla, chocolate? And just as I'm smelling, I'm kind of going through those memories in my mind to try to identify some key components. And that's what makes blind tasting fun when you don't know what's in it, is if you can kind of create a roadmap of where to get somewhere. I mean, it's kind of a parlor trick, but I love doing blind tasting because you have no preconceived notion on what you're going to be buying.
I am so glad that you just broke that down like that, because that was probably the best explanation I've ever heard of tasting and flavor profiles and how to approach something like that. So thank you for that. Let's note the time on this and make that like something that we can post separately, because that was excellent.
Yeah, for sure. But my answer would have just been
tasting in 60 seconds.
Yeah, go. So just concise, excellent. Like, I think a lot of people that watch us, because I think they're watching just to see us be idiots and drink wine. Like, I think that was a really great, a breakdown of how to approach any glass of wine.
Yeah, and for me,
you may not have some wine. I'm just kidding. You may, of course, man.
Those categories to me are all pretty much nose. And, you guys have all had wines that the nose match the palate. And we've all had wines where you smell something and you think you're going to like it, or you think you're going to hate it, and you try it and you're like, this is a completely different wine than what I'm smelling. And those wines to me are fun. I mean, to me, this one definitely tastes like it smells.
Right.
You know, there's not a lot of things on the palate that I don't get on the nose. But especially when you're tasting international wines, sometimes those things can get real funky on the nose.
Especially like CDPs.
Oh yeah.
CDP. Well, I was going to say Burgundies too. Like, that's what my wife and I really enjoyed about the Burgundies, was that the experience from the olfactory sense to what you get on the palate. It's so different in a lot of the cases.
So that breakdown that I gave you guys, to me, that's just nose. So let's see. I did fruit. When I'm talking about earth, I usually talk about, okay, is it dry earth? Like, think about dust. Is it wet earth, like stone, or my favorite analogy, cabin shower? You go to the tile shower, you turn it on, and it all smells like mineral. Is it, wet rock, or is it like forest floor, muddy earth, walking on a trail in the rainforest where you get like the oak and the dirt and all that sort of stuff. So to me, what, like, just for example, do you guys get dry earth, muddy earth, or like slate on the nose?
I get like that forest you were talking about, like walking down a path.
Yep, this is dark, muddy forest floor for sure.
Yeah.
Barnyard.
Oh man,
Absolutely.
it's smelling so good.
So good. It's so good.
But I'm getting baking spice on the nose right now pretty prominently.
Okay, so baking spices, we said vanilla.
Yeah.
What else could go in here?
Like a clove or,
cinnamon, nutmeg, maybe?
Cinnamon, nutmeg. That's like a Christmas spice almost. Like something you would smell during the holidays.
Holiday spice.
Yeah.
Love it. I don't know if you guys have ever had wines where you're like, that smells like a ginger snap cookie or like a pound cake.
Absolutely.
You can't get it out of your mind.
Yeah. My wife has famously called allspice out a couple times, to which everybody's like, oh yeah, there it is.
Mm-hmm. Every time I kind of break down when I'm hosting groups, the people, when I do this type of kind of breakdown tasting, the ones that are the best are the bakers. The ones that know the spices according to the nose. And they always think they're terrible, and then they like literally start nailing them. And, at the end of the day, there is no really right or wrong when you're describing wines, but there are chemical compounds in a smell that are the same thing as a product, right? If you look at the chemistry. So, even though my idea of blackberry from California is different than an East Coast blackberry, than a Florida blackberry, it should all relatively smell the same. Right. But that being said, you also have like cherry, where there's like fresh cherry cough syrup, cherry fruit by the foot. Those are three complete different cherries.
Yeah.
Ritz called out fruit by the foot last week.
Yeah, I was
right. Quick shout to Mike Luganbill for joining us. Cheers, Luganbill.
What's up, Mike?
Hope you're drinking some nice wine.
I'll say one of the things I still have from my visit to
so good. Do you want to say something?
The winery was Mike Davis gave me his card, and it's a metal card, laser etched. I was like, dude, this is sick. But I got the chance to like sit down and just talk with him for about an hour. He just came and like, just chilled with us for a little while. We were talking, about IU. Like he didn't realize that Straight No Chaser had the connection. He didn't really know who Straight No Chaser was. Can't fault him for that because most people don't. But, we were talking about it, and then we found out we're from IU, and then there's like a whole thing, and we just, talked for about an hour just about IU and everything. And unbelievably nice guy. And so just for everyone watching, why don't you let everyone know where they can find your wine, where they can find you guys, all those kind of details.
Oh, sure. So, our presence is not huge as far as distribution, but a lot of the major markets, you can find the wines out in the marketplace. So a lot of, LA, Chicago, New York, Florida. But, being a new brand, we're not in every state, that's for sure. We have many, many wines that are only sold here at the tasting room, direct to consumer. So davisestates.com is how you can access our online shop. And then you can always call the winery and kind of see, because when we have the last of onesie, twosie things, a great thing about working at a small boutique shop is that there's many wines that we make that is less than 4 barrels. So if we're doing 100 cases of something and, we send 1 bottle to each of the, members that we have, the wine's gone. Yeah. So I would say that, we kind of focus on Chardonnay and Cabernet as far as the wholesale distribution, business to business. Best thing to do if you're in a state that you're interested is to call the winery, and I can look up the distributor for you and share a phone number, share an email, and then you could get in touch with the distributor and see what local shops you have. So that's probably the best way, other than going on the website, checking it out. There's a great video on there where you can kind of learn a little bit about Mike. And definitely I tell people, go on and check out the pictures, because the facility here is kind of second to none.
It's amazing. It's absolutely
honestly
epic.
It's like Chip and Joe had an unlimited budget to create a winery. Honestly, that's what it looks like. It's the rustic modern, it's just beautiful. And what was I going to say about? Oh man, I was just going to mention something about the vineyard. Keep going. I'll remember as we go.
Oh, no worries.
Well, I was going to say real quick that one of the things that we talk about a lot, besides what to pair it with, which Pete, I'd like to get your thoughts on that. But also for this particular wine, like this is the sideways idea of when you open a bottle of wine is the special occasion. This is definitely a very nice bottle of wine, great for any special occasion, any occasion. I wouldn't take this to a party of more than probably 4, like total, just because it's so good. You're going to want to make sure you get a full glass of it, right? But it's definitely an impressive bottle. What would you pair this with, Pete?
I like to try to think sometimes outside of the normal, because Cabernet and steak have been done so many times together.
Absolutely, because it's so good.
It is so good. Trust me.
It's so good.
I think that gets back to our primitive days of like steak, salt, pepper, red wine, go. Like, who needs a plate? Just cut it on the cutting board and go at it with forks. For me, I like pairings that really, again, create that thought, and maybe it's fun and funky and unique and different that of something that you may have not thought about. So before this whole COVID quarantine went into action, the tasting here, it's all built around food pairing. So we have our own in-house chef. We do small bites that are all prepared by our executive chef, Mark Caldwell. And we did this with a roasted beets black rice risotto. Wow. So a vegetarian dish that realistically, the beets gave it all that funky minerality, the earthiness, Parmesan on top, and slow cooked black forbidden rice risotto. It was one of these pairings that you don't think, like vegetarian risotto and Cabernet. It was so dynamite that every single person asked for the recipe, and I was like, are you really going to try to pull off risotto? Because every time I try to cook risotto, I butcher it. And we shared the recipe, and I can't tell you how many people emailed back and they're like, it's our new favorite dish. And I'm going to go.
Definitely send me that recipe. I just texted my wife the gist of it, but I as you were describing it, I started to salivate pretty severely. Like, it sounds amazing.
Who is that, DR?
My wife.
What is it? I'm trying to remember is it the soup that you guys serve that's just like kind of famous?
So yeah, every pairing we have one soup on the menu. And Chef Mark's very famous soup is a mushroom bisque that he uses dried trumpet mushrooms along with shiitakes and all these other mushrooms. And the key to that is, he was telling me he buys the trumpet mushrooms dehydrated and then will rehydrate them in beef broth. So you're talking about intensifying flavor and then reducing down those mushrooms, cooking them for hours with garlic, shallot, onion, all those huge umami flavors, and making a cream sauce mushroom. It's just
happening again.
Yes.
Salivating severely.
Keep talking.
Seriously, I was there 2 years ago, and I still remember how good that soup was.
Yeah.
Insane.
That's the only thing since I've been here in the 2 years that we have done a second time, because the people demanded it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always try to do a soup. I think it matches the rustic barn chic thing we got going on, the kind of vibe of the barn. And, again, definitely check out the website and you'll see kind of what I'm talking about. But there's definitely a homey family room, just very comfortable vibe out here. There's nothing snooty and bougie and pretentious about us at all. Yeah. I actually put on a sweater just for you guys. So.
And we appreciate that. You didn't need to do that for us. We did shower for you, which is a start for all of us. Really, I can't speak for you.
Are you normally bare chested?
Not really. The polo, maybe. Yeah.
What is this, Tiger King? All right, take it easy, everybody.
But one of the other things I want to mention, and I'm not going to give it away, but the tour that you guys do is epic, and I've had the opportunity to do a lot of tours at facilities in the Valley, and the one that you guys do is amazing. You know, you guys have a whole James Bond thing, which again, I don't want to give too much away because people should take the tour, but it's super cool. Everything that you guys have going on there. The end of the tour is amazing. The property and the vistas and the views are just, you know, stunning. And it's, you know, there's a lot of amazing wineries in the Valley and a lot of people that make great wine.
Right.
There's not a ton of places that have a stunning vista and make great wine. So you guys are definitely in that upper echelon of places that do both really well.
For sure. And I'd say that the third component of that is the food program that we have. So we have, you know, tons of raised bed gardens that we always walk past, and we kind of make sure that we have a point to show you the vegetables that you're about to be consuming, you know, in the pairing itself. The food pairing that we do, it changes every 6 weeks. We can't pretend to be a restaurant, so we can't take orders. We can't serve you more food, but essentially it's 4 bites, and let's call the bites, you know, realistically 3 or 4 bites per wine. And every 6 weeks we change that tasting menu. So normally the restaurant experience, if you're going to go into a restaurant and the sommelier comes over, you guys decide what you're going to eat, and then my geeky som self would tell you, okay, this is what I recommend you drink. We have completely flipped the script on our chef, where I tell the chef what wines that I have enough of to pour for the next 6 weeks, give him a couple sample bottles, and then he takes the time and takes weeks to figure out that next menu according to A, what's growing in our garden, but B, kind of what is a unique change and what will make people think. So I think, you know, myself being a wine guy, trying to get as much into food as possible, and then our chef being a food guy, trying to get in wine as much as possible, with us two collaborating and doing all these trials. The best part of my job is when the new menu comes out, I'm getting spoonfuls of different soup as he's tweaking, changing it, adding acid, salt, pepper, and I'm going a little more, a little less, and then we finally decide, and it's like, boom. We sit down as a staff, we all try it, we decide on presentation, amount of food, the dishware we're going to use. It's very well thought and well done. And, you know, we never really see more than 3 groups at one time. It's all private. And yeah, like you're saying, the facility here is second to none. And I don't like to give it away, but, you know, I don't tell my staff to give tours based on, you know, talking about pH and vineyard, you know, mechanics. It's show people the property, have some fun, have some laughs, drink some good wine, and people fall in love. You know, it doesn't need to be super, super technical.
Yeah.
Well, Pete, I look forward to coming out there and drinking some wine and also eating some of that delicious food that you were discussing.
Yeah.
So, you know, cheers to you guys.
Cheers to that.
Appreciate drinking with you today.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys.
And just circling back on how to get the wines, and this is just in general for a lot of the people that we're talking to, buying the wines directly from the winery is always the best way to go. There's no middleman. There's, you know, as long as your state allows it, buy the wines direct from the wineries. You know, when it comes down to it, these are all small businesses. And small businesses need support, especially during a time like this where the food and wine industry is, you know, is continuing to struggle, and we all need wine now more than ever. So support these businesses by buying it direct from them, please.
And not just small businesses, family businesses.
Absolutely.
You know, Moonshine family, Schweiger family, Falcor family, Davis family. You know, so
Andy's watching right now.
It's no coincidence that's who we gravitate towards, because Straight No Chaser is in and of itself a small family business. So, you know, we really enjoy the hard work that goes into making wine, obviously, but you know, when you have that aspect of that family atmosphere, and when you show up, you feel like you're part of that extended family. You know, everyone we've talked to on all the episodes we've had share that in common. So that's another reason why you should order direct from these wineries.
Yeah, there's something about going to a place that is amazing and sitting down with the owner, having a glass of wine with him, and seeing the person's vision coming out of their mouth, you know. And I've been blessed that I've only worked for small family wineries, and I don't see that ever changing because I want to know my boss. And the fact that I'm working at a place where, you know, for the most part, we're all still employed. You know, my job has changed from hosting people and schmoozing and giving tours and coaching the staff to, you know, reaching out on the phone and seeing if people want to buy wine. But, you know, we have no idea how long this is going to be, you know, going on for. So we really appreciate the support you can give, especially being a young brand. I mean, we're 4 years old, so it's like we're still definitely in that infancy stage. So online, there's tons of links. You can always email me, Pete H, as in happy, at davisestates.com. That's my personal email. You could reach out. I can get you guys whatever you want.
Awesome. Pete, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Pete.
Appreciate you taking the time. This is a lot of fun, dude.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure, and thanks for having me.
Cheers.
Anytime.
Cheers,
man.
everybody.
Cheers. And to everybody watching, you got about 30 minutes before you need to head over to YouTube to watch Straight No Chaser live at Mohegan Sun from this past fall tour. And again, the show is free. We're not selling tickets, but if you're able to, we are asking, please make a donation. All donations are going towards Feeding America, a great charity that is very necessary right now. So that starts in 30 minutes. So you got time to refill your glasses. And Pete, thank you so much, man.
Open another bottle, let it breathe.
Yeah, this has been great. I look forward to finishing the rest of this and maybe even opening the Davis Cab Franc I have downstairs.
Ooh.
And hope to have you on again, man. Honestly,
Thanks,
just
man.
a wealth of info.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I like flexing my geeky wine brain. It makes me feel like my decision to get into becoming a professional alcoholic paid off.
And you give us legitimacy at the same time. So it's
That's
win-win.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Mutual, yeah.
Mom said do what you're good at, so getting into the booze business.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Cheers. Stay home.
All right. I'm going to end recording
Still
now.
recording.
Live stream stopped. Cool, guys. Thanks again.
Recording.
Pete. That was a blast.
Yo, Pete, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you know, your expertise and your ability to sort of break it down like that. I've never heard